Welcome back to the Young Turks, everybody. John Idarola, J.R. Jackson on the panel. And not only is he on the panel, it's just us.
Hey, you know, so that means we can mess things up, take over. As John just said before we came on, yeah, I'm tweeting. Because we can do that. Playing the role of Ben Mankiewicz.
He'd be on his laptop.
Oh yeah, it's true, I should have brought mine in.
Him and Jimmy love the laptop.
As John just said, you guys don't know some of the back indoor, and so it's inside baseball is the term of what happens there. He said, we're gonna burn this place down.
Screw it, okay? He leaves, that's what happens.
See, they talk about terrorists and stuff, but this guy.
I don't know why we had to take in that direction. But anyway, we do have a big show. Obviously, the Sessions testimony just ended like less than an hour ago. And so we're gonna be talking about that. I knew we'd be talking about that. I didn't know how big of a portion of the show it's probably gonna end up taking up.
But you know
a
what
lot
they
actually
did?
happened.
A lot happened and we can't even get to it all. You know what? I think specifically, a lot of times these hearings, the Comey hearings started like 8 in the morning, our time. We're on the West Coast. 8 in the morning, I was like, man, as soon as I'm up, I'm like on all this stuff, and then I have to get ready, get to work, hear it, analyze it, cut it, all this stuff, and then still talk about it.
Yeah.
They started this one late because they know the Young Turks were really gonna get into it, so they want to start late so we couldn't get to it. It's all about us.
Yeah, it's pretty clear at this point that's what's going on. But we do have a lot more for you once we get past Sessions. I want to spotlight a couple of recent hires at the EPA and the Department of Justice having to do with investigations into those who pollute and destroy the environment that tell you everything you need to know about the priorities of the Trump administration. If we have time at the end of the show, we are going to do a little flashback to yesterday's most bizarre cabinet meeting in US history. Some fun video there. And then also, I want to shed some light. I recently found some data on how much the average American makes, what the cutoff point is for the majority of Americans. And it was interesting, but I think I have a spin on it that's actually more interesting. And we'll get to that after our first break. But we're gonna start off with Sessions. Today, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, testified, and he did his damnedest to say as little as possible. And along the way, he crafted this very interesting BS legal argument for why he didn't need to answer their questions, while at the same time not asserting or having Donald Trump assert executive privilege. And so let's look at, this happened over and over and over throughout the testimony, but we're gonna start off with Sessions talking with Angus King.
What is the basis of your refusal to answer these questions?
Senator Kaine, the president has a constitutional.
I understand that, but the president hasn't asserted it.
Well,
you said you don't have the power to assert the power of executive privilege. So what is the legal basis for your refusal to answer these questions?
I am protecting the right of the president to assert it if he chooses, and there may be other privileges that could apply in this circumstance.
So, I mean, it's both infuriating and also a little funny. So he's saying, okay, you think we have to actually assert executive privilege to not answer your questions, but I'm just protecting his right to someday ever assert it. Because we're led to believe that Donald Trump didn't know that Jeff Sessions would be testifying today and didn't know that he could assert executive privilege if he wanted to. Is that what is actually going on at the White House? I don't think that's what's going on.
Well, no, he doesn't. Again, before they even came, they were preparing for this. And we'll get to later with what else they were preparing to answer or not answer as things are going. But Kellyanne Conway was, before he even came on, said Sessions is willing to cooperate and share what he knows. So of course, what are you gonna share what you don't know? So in other words, we're gonna try and cover up as much as possible, say what we can say and not say, and also what we choose to say, and then cover it up with this guise of the reasons why we can't say it. Now, there was reasons behind this whole testimony in the first place, this hearing being called. Some of the things that former FBI Director James Comey said about his worries and issues with Jeff Sessions' recusal from the Russia investigation. Also, then if he's recused from the Russia investigation, how much of a hand he had in the firing of James Comey, because as the president said specifically, he was fired because of the Russian investigation. Then he wasn't, and then he was before he was, but then after he was, and then also his meetings with different Russians and Kislyak in particular. So all these things is what he had to answer. Just to give you some more specifics about what he wasn't answering about.
Yeah.
So as we go through all this, just remember, there's lots of angles. And last week, I believe it was, when Senator Kamala Harris was asking about his angles and his potential allowance of letting the Russian investigation go, that's the reason why this is all culminated to where we are.
Yeah, and look, we're gonna touch, as Jared said, on a number of different angles on this. I wish that we had more that we could reveal, but when you combine the fact that he apparently doesn't remember anything about his life with the few things that he theoretically does remember, he's saying he doesn't have to talk about, you get almost no information. And I want you to consider what it would be like if everyone testifying before Congress or for perhaps a special counsel used this same argument, that we don't have to assert executive privilege because someday perhaps the president might want to, which is cool because then you get all of the benefits of exerting executive privilege or asserting it without having the obvious suspicious nature of that. Now, I don't think it's gonna work. I think that in this case, it's very obvious that it's weird that he refuses to reveal anything about his conversations with Donald Trump on important issues, like whether he actually ever talked about the Russia investigation, whether he talked about wanting to shut down the investigation, put pressure on James Comey, all of these incredibly relevant questions. I would say the reasons that Sessions was brought in the first place. He can't talk about any of that because someday, theoretically, Donald Trump might want to use executive privilege. That is absolute BS. None of the senators were buying it. Some try to distract from it. And I looked at the media coverage of this afterward, and interestingly, Fox News, Breitbart, no mention of this weird legal strategy in their coverage of it. But you need to know going into our coverage that that's the main impediment to us knowing more about what's actually going on, is that they don't want to reveal anything, but they also know how bad it'll look if they choose not to under their actual constitutional abilities.
So before we go into more of these, I did see, before we really got to cutting, I did see his opening statement. Jeff Sessions did, at least there was one thing that stuck out to me. He admitted that he was in a way involved with the recommendation to fire James Comey. And in saying that, he said, yeah, I admitted that I was part of it, but just because I recused myself from a Russian investigation because I was part of the campaign apparatus, it doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to have input on the FBI director because there's tons of investigations, there's tons of work that's going on. So at least he admitted that he had a part in that, but then he had a justification for why he had a part in that.
Which is BS, yeah.
But yeah, because then now they'll say that it had nothing to really do with that, it had to do with other things.
Yeah, exactly. So the issue of whether Jeff Sessions' recusal from the Russia investigation actually is worth a damn was a big part of at least the first half of the testimony today. Now, he has a great quote, and we're gonna show you the video. So this is video 11, where he attempts to distract, to start up this weird little emotional tangent, to get you to forget what the actual question is. So we're gonna play this video, and then we're gonna break it down.
Respectfully, you're not answering the question.
Well, what is the question?
The question is, Mr. Comey said that there were matters with respect to the recusal that were problematic and he couldn't talk about them. What are they?
Why don't you tell me? There are none, Senator Wyden. There are none. I can tell you that for absolute
certainty.
I can tell you that. And he also went on to say this eventually. I recused myself from any investigation into the campaign for president, but I did not recuse myself from defending my honor against scurrilous and false allegations. Well, that's good. No one's accusing you of that. That doesn't make any sense, and I have no idea what you're talking about. What they're accusing you of is something very simple. It's you said you would not be involved in any matters having to do with the Russia investigation. Then you're involved in the signed letter that recommended that James Comey gets fired. So as JR pointed out, his defense of that is saying that I didn't recuse myself from everything having to do with the head of the FBI, which is true. But you know damn well that this situation where you have Donald Trump saying that what was on his mind, his rationale for firing him, was that the Russia investigation is a hoax and it needs to be shut down. The idea that you didn't know about that you don't know that that's the principal thing that James Comey is working on at that particular moment. We know from news reports at the time that he had just requested additional resources for that investigation. He's fired inside of 48 hours of that request. You might have some sort of case that this doesn't violate your recusal if we forget everything else we know about what's been going on in this country. Now, there's some other sections I want to talk about. See, this is something that JR brought up. The question of Jeff Sessions' meetings with Russian officials. Kislyak, the ambassador, obviously one of the biggest ones, but there were a number of other possible meetings that he had to talk about. Here he is speaking with Senator Burr.
Communications with Russian officials for any reason during the campaign that have not been disclosed in public or to this committee?
I don't recall it, but I have to tell you, I cannot testify to what was said.
From your testimony, you said you don't remember whether Ambassador Kislyak was there, the Russian ambassador. Is that correct?
I did not remember that. But I understand he was there. So I don't doubt that he was. I believe that representations are correct. In fact, I recently saw a video of him coming into the room.
But you never remember having a conversation or a meeting with Ambassador Kislyak?
So that was just one of many things that he doesn't quite recall. I love that nobody says anything about can't quite recall unless they're speaking to Congress and they're hiding something. Nobody uses that in regular speech.
It's weird. There's the defense, an ongoing defense that certain people in government, he was a senator, and they always have conversations with foreign leaders or foreign ambassadors, Kislyak, or people that are involved in different things, and they'll all be in a room speaking. And it's a very necessary thing. Fine, whatever, right? It happens across all lines, across all political parties. But the thing is, after you do, if you have a reason to speak to somebody, don't you have a reason, even if it's not nefarious, if it's a real good reason, you're trying to advance America's cause in the world? You'd brag about that, right? But you don't remember? You remember something, whether or not it's good or bad. You should remember whether or not you've had a conversation with a world leader and their influence and our influence in the world. But so why do you have these meetings if you don't remember them being there or what the hell you talked about?
Yeah, and look, he's gonna say, as you say, he meets lots of people. And I'm sure that he does meet a lot of people now and then. But this isn't just any ambassador, this is the ambassador to Russia. And it's not just that we're talking now about the possibility that Russia was massively involved in trying to influence the election. We were talking about it then. Yeah. You don't meet with the ambassador of a country that we're concerned is tampering with our election at that time, and it just, in one ear out the other. That's not how memory works, okay? Some things stand out. And the fact that you're talking to the ambassador, to one of our chief rivals, who's at that time involved in a campaign to influence our election, of course you remember that. And look, the fact that he lied about it in his Senate hearings is another good reason that he should have never, in his hearings to become the AG, another good reason he should have never actually gotten the position. And Tom Cotton said, basically, that unless spycraft looks like it does in a Jason Bourne movie, nothing could actually be up. That it has to look like a spy novel or a spy movie. It's a ridiculous aside. And at the end of the day, I don't even know the meetings with Kislyak. Do I think that Kislyak talked to Sessions after his speech at the RNC and said something incredibly damning? Probably not, and I have no idea. But it is incredibly suspicious that everyone in Trump's orbit had repeated contacts with Russian officials and businessmen, and all of them, when it comes time to write down on an official form who you met with, they all suspiciously forget about it, whether they're old men like Jeff Sessions or Jared Kushner. When it comes time to get their security clearances or to get a position in government, they all universally forget about those meetings. That's incredibly suspicious.
It's just the way it works. So then the go-to strategy in these hearings is to not remember or to not be able to speak about it. It happened a lot in previous ones. Comey revealed a lot, but then there was things he couldn't talk about. The intelligence committees, they had to talk about, I can't say it in an open session. So there's value in these things, and I said it from the last ones. There's values in these, but there's also a lot of frustration. And then if you can go with the go-to of, well, the media is just out to get us, all that's left to do is to speculate on what the rest of the story is. Because they'll give you a piece of it and then say, well, I can't answer the rest of that, my bad, it's just the way it works. And then now that they're off in the dark, we don't know what else to say. And then everything else that comes out then is media speculation because they're out to get us.
Exactly, yeah. And look, he talked about that a little there.
Display.
Exactly, yes. Actually, this is gonna be the next story. Kamala Harris had a great interaction with Jeff Sessions where she, like others, was trying to break through this ridiculous legal fiction that he had created to stop himself from having to reveal conversations he's had with Donald Trump. But she did it particularly well, and you could see how it was influencing Jeff Sessions in real time. Let's roll video 8 now.
Did you have any communications with Russian officials for any reason during the campaign that have not been disclosed in public or to this committee?
I don't recall it, but I have to tell you, I cannot testify to what was said as we were standing at the Republican convention before the podium where I spoke.
My question is only as it relates to your knowledge.
I don't have the detailed memory of that.
Okay, as it relates to your knowledge. Did you have any communication with any Russian businessmen or any Russian nationals?
I don't believe I had any conversation with Russian businessmen or Russian nationals.
Are you aware of any
Although
communications?
a lot of people were at the convention. It's conceivable that somebody came
I
up to me.
have just a few.
Well, you let me qualify it. If I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying. So I need to be correct as best I can.
I do want you to be honest.
And I'm not able to be rushed this fast. It makes me nervous.
Don't say that.
I want you again. So
You're not in a public urinal,
this is a,
okay?
I don't want to assume so, but this is a sworn testimony he's having in front of Congress. So think of it like court. You go in, you put your hand on the Bible, you raise your right hand, and you swear that you're going to tell the truth. So I just wanted you to imagine a two-bit accused criminal going in front of the judge and jury or whoever's deciding his fate, and then for the whole time he's asked questions by the prosecutor, he goes, I mean, not to my knowledge. I mean, I live in the area and I was near the convenience store. I've been in there before, but I can't tell you on the night of May 13th if I was actually in there at 6 to 7 o'clock when the crime took place. Maybe I was. And you just keep talking, they're gonna go, shut up and answer the question.
Yeah.
But if someone else tells me, hey, that's not what I was asking you, suddenly it's rude to step in and ask that the question get answered, because we have to respect certain people who are just as potentially corrupt and nefarious as these two-bit criminals that we're ready to lock away immediately.
Yeah, they would be pissed at you, and the police in your hypothetical don't have a 5-minute limit on how much they can talk, which it's ridiculous. I mean, I know these hearings go on and on, there's a lot of senators, but the time limits just don't make any sense to me. But I want to move on to this next section because my tease to that video was actually incorrect. But here is where they're going to get into, if you're going to say that theoretically the president can assert executive privilege later on, so you get to, by proxy, do it now without actually doing it. If you're gonna use this argument that we've never heard before, why didn't you actually bring any supporting information about it? And like in a video we showed you last week, things are gonna get a little bit testy and there's going to be an attempt to shush her.
Can you tell us what policy it is you're talking about?
Well, I think most cabinet people, as the witnesses you had before you earlier, those individuals declined to comment because we're all about conversations with the president.
Sir, I'm just asking you about the DOJ policy you referred to.
Policy that goes beyond just the Attorney General.
Is that policy in writing somewhere?
I think so.
So did you not consult it before you came before this committee, knowing we would ask you questions about it?
Well, we talked about it. The policy is based...
Did you ask that it would be shown to you?
The policy is based on the principle that the president...
Sir, I'm not asking about the principle. I'm asking when you would be asked these questions and you would rely on that policy. Did you not ask your staff to show you the policy that would be the basis for you refusing to answer the majority of questions that have been asked of you?
Should be allowed to answer the question.
Senators will allow the chair to control the hearing. Senator Harris, let him answer.
Please do. Thank you.
We talked about it, and we talked about the real principle that's at stake. It's one that I have some appreciation for, as having spent 15 years in the Department of Justice, 12 as United States Attorney. And that principle is that the Constitution provides the head of the executive branch certain privileges, and that members, one of them is confidentiality of communications. And it is improper for agents of any department any departments in the executive branch to waive that privilege without a clear approval of the president.
I have asked.
And that's the situation we're in.
For a yes or no, did you ask your
So the
staff
answer is yes. I consulted.
Did you ask your staff to see the policy?
Expired.
Apparently not.
Senator Cornyn.
Yes, I consulted with my staff about how not to answer these questions, and they told me to filibuster because the people who are going to be asking me these tough questions will only have a short time limit to do so. So if I talk as much as possible, I can maybe get out of here with my neck.
What you don't understand, it's the principle of the thing. It's the principle. Yeah, he kept returning to that. He consulted about, okay, here's our defense. Tell me about it. Tell me what I got. And then they said, okay, so when somebody asks you for specifics, just pull your pockets out. You got nothing. You got nothing, because it doesn't exist. It's not the principle of the thing. The principle is that you don't want to answer the damn question. But here's the thing. He's doing all of this smoke and mirrors to resist having to answer a couple of incredibly simple questions. But the cool thing is that in trying to not answer the questions, we know what the answer is. For instance, one of the questions that kept coming up is, in your conversations with Donald Trump, did he ever talk about Comey and the Russia investigation? Well, I can't answer anything about the conversation with the president. No, if it was no, you'd say it, because it would help you at that point. Obviously, it would help you and it would help Donald Trump. The only case in which you don't answer that question is because, yes, obviously Donald Trump did talk to you about it. It was clear from you that he was trying to pressure Comey when he asked you to leave the room before those private conversations with the former head of the FBI, and you left the room. You were willing to do that. You knew what was going on, you devious little goblin of a man. You knew what you were doing, and now you're trying to evade any responsibility for it. And hopefully, smart people watching his testimony and reading about it later on can see through the BS and know that that is the truth.
Yeah, I was doing what I was told by the president, and that's a bad answer.
Yeah,
but that's the truth.
Exactly.
That's why you left the room.
Yeah, I was following orders. Never a good answer to a question about immoral or unethical behavior. By the way, one more thing. When talking about the firing of James Comey and the fact that it looks like it pretty clearly violated his pledge to recuse himself from this matter, his defense was, it wasn't about that. It was about dem emails, though, that we didn't like the way he handled the situation with Hillary Clinton before the election, so he had to be fired as a result of that. Now, thankfully, as a lot of people have pointed out, that directly contradicts not just reality, but Jeff Sessions himself in previous statements he's made. So he said this back last fall in response to a question from Lou Dobbs about his handling of the Hillary Clinton situation. Jeff Sessions said this about Comey. Comey has done what his duty is, I think. He's got evidence to go forward now with further criminal investigation. He has no other responsibility than to follow that and then tell the American people what he's doing. And that's just one statement. He's made 2 or 3 statements where he said, yeah, his handling of the situation was perfectly fine. That's one of the reasons, theoretically, he might stay on as head of the FBI. But then the situation changed, not having to do with Hillary Clinton's emails, but having to do with Russia. And we know that that eventually ended up with James Comey being fired.
Doesn't make any sense. What reason would you have to go back and talk about emails from somebody you beat?
That you're mad that he revealed something about a possible investigation? No, obviously that's not what it is. And you know that that more than likely helped you at least a little bit in the closing days of the election. Nobody buys that. As I
celebrated as I was helping him.
Exactly. He's either lying or he is the only person on the planet who genuinely believes that. I think that the lying is a little bit more likely at this point. Anyway, at this point we do have to take our first break. When we come back, that whole special counsel thing we've been talking about, that may not last that much longer. We'll break down why that might be when we come back from this break.
There are few things in life as exciting in a crowd form as horse racing.
It is pretty awesome.
It is fucking awesome.
No, I went once and it was great. And a long time ago, a million years ago.
Everybody's like, oh, no, and then shit happens. It's great drama. I have a system. If there's a gray horse, I always pick it.
Obviously.
So
you've lost a lot of money,
but you look who's the jumpy horse, right? And I got to tell you, more times than not, the horse when they walk him, who's the jumpiest, that guy's gonna place. He's gonna either win or come in. I'm telling you,
that is a much better strategy than the fucking gray horse. In Vegas they have this team. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. When they're doing the World Series of Poker, they'll have a table right outside with one guy sitting there. $5 to tell me your bad beat story. So you give him $5 and he listens to your story, but I had the queens and he had the fucking kings. Can you believe?
The first time I ever went to Vegas, I saw a guy selling his belt buckle and his wedding ring in the bathroom.
Oh, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
And I was like,
He's probably getting divorced.
no, I'm gonna stick to the $5 tables.
So my dad to this day says, like, whenever I tell him I went gambling stuff, oh, I hope you're lost. Because he thinks,
telling you that?
Yeah, still, after like 20 years, he thinks if I just lose one more time, I'll stop winning. And I'll say, no, Dad, I'm telling you because I won. I wouldn't tell you if I lost because you're gonna give you a heart attack. I did great and I won, whatever. And he's like, I wish you hadn't.
It's like my parents telling me, like, the last tattoo, okay? That should be the last one.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
Welcome back to TYT, everybody. John and JR, we've got some tweets we want to read. A couple of good ideas here, actually. So Daniel Perea says, congressional committee hearings should be chess clocked. Congress people's time only ticks down when they're talking. That seems like a perfectly reasonable. Yeah. Like Kamala Harris did talk for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's their speaking.
Why should that little troll? Anyway.
Chess clocked.
El Duende Chingon said this, cop, sir, are there any drugs in the vehicle? Me, I don't recall. Cop, get out. That's how it works in the real world. I don't quite recall. I remember I did weed once. I don't really. Anyway, Rommel J. Guzman says more than half of the members of federal government should be in hospice. These people barely know where they are half the time. And yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed watching the Comey testimony and this is our elected representatives are really old, man.
Well, and also all the ones that are, as we found out with Jeff Sessions, even people that are appointed to positions, high positions, they consistently get briefed and told exactly which sentences to say.
Thing yesterday?
Their staff does the work. Whoever and I get it because there's a lot of information, so you need people that are like constitutional scholars or constitutional like wonks and nerds, and that's just said, oh, this aspect you need to remember, Senator.
Yeah.
I get that. but they don't really know much anything else. Once you lean on them that much, you don't have to have much else behind you.
Yeah, if they, oh man, God help them if they stay up late watching a Diamondbacks game or something. Oh, they're just out of it for like a week. Yeah, and look, older people, obviously, in our society, as in societies throughout world history, have accrued wisdom and context that we may not be familiar with. But at a certain point, I mean, it's one of the reasons Kamala Harris, I think, strikes a chord with a lot of people, is because she is right there in the moment with her razor-sharp lawyer's mind. If she ever says she doesn't recall anything, she lying, because she never forgot anything in her whole life.
She knew exactly where she was going, and he can tell where she's going with this line of question. He's like, I am being walked right down the death row.
Yes, exactly.
She's about to zero in and get me.
Like someone like Jeff Sessions, man, when he leaves that room, I don't know if he can figure out how to Uber home. Just at some point, the world can pass people by. And that says more about the world than them. That's okay, you can retire at some point.
Before we go further, people ask, so I answer. Another T. I know this isn't a TY t-shirt, I apologize. But the good people at Riot Society, RiotSociety.com, check out those t-shirts. They got fun stuff. I got a few of them from them, and I rock it.
But
tomorrow
Society.
I rock
Look at this
TYT.shop, shop TYT.com.
Yeah, at some point in the near future, I'll support this company, but not today.
But right now, Riot Society, I mean, I can't recall whether or not I met with them, but I know I have before spoken with them, maybe before or after I wore the shirt.
One of those two. He might need to claim that he never bought that shirt in the future. So anyway, okay, we're gonna jump back on the news though. On yesterday's show, we talked about this rapidly brewing narrative that maybe the special counsel, Robert Mueller, maybe he needs to be fired. And that sort of, I thought, came out of nowhere, considering all the compliments that had been thrown Mueller's way, that all of a sudden you had all these right-wingers, including Newt Gingrich and others, saying, oh, really shady though, don't listen to what I said before, don't trust my lying tweets, he might need to go. And what do you know? Yesterday, just a couple of hours after our initial coverage of that, suddenly from a Trump friend, sounds like Mueller might not be long for this investigation, which you're gonna see in this video.
Believe that the president is seriously considering getting rid of Bob Mueller, and why do you think that?
I think it's a consideration the president has had because Mueller is illegitimate as special counsel. Chris, remember, there is no evidence of wrongdoing. There's no evidence of collusion. There's no evidence of obstruction.
I don't understand what this newfound disparagement is about.
I have no disparagement for Bob Mueller.
You just said he's illegitimate as special counsel. That's not nice.
Correct. But I said as a man, I'm saying as a man, I think he did a great job running the FBI.
As a man, he's great, but get rid of his ass, he's illegitimate. Well, who's speaking then if not the man himself? So that is apparently a close friend and occasional confidant of Donald Trump. He's considering it. And the response from the White House was sort of a non-denial denial. And Rosenstein, who testified earlier today, was asked whether he has confidence in Mueller's integrity and in his investigation. He said yes. The follow-up question was, does the president have confidence in him? I don't know. Well, that's not a good sign. Ask James Comey about that. And so that gets a little bit suspicious, but it's interesting that it's been sort of backed up by some other Republicans. So in this next video, I believe you, trust me, don't worry. In this next video, you're gonna see Paul Ryan blaming not all the Republicans that are now bad-mouthing Mueller, but the media for this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, all I've heard so much are rumors, but I think in the best case for the president is to be vindicated by allowing this investigation to go on thoroughly and independently. So I think the best advice would be to let Robert Mueller do his job.
One, did you convey your opinions to the president on Mr. Mueller that you should just let the investigation continue? And if the president does
What's that?
and let Mr. Mueller go,
There's no debate that's going on here. You're saying this?
You're creating a debate that's not happening.
Yeah, this is. I heard this is like a rumor we heard last night. So there's really not some big debate that's occurring on this. You're creating, like I said, Kevin just met it. You're creating a debate that's not occurring here. This is something that I think was a rumor that came out last night. So.
And healthcare, and you're creating a rumor where this not happening?
We are focused on solving people's problems. What I think the American people want to know is that their government's working.
We would like to know that, and I look forward to the days when it does. So you know you're dealing with a prepared talking point when they say the exact same words 3 times in a row there. So it's not, all these newfound Republican critics, it's not Newt Gingrich, it's not a friend of Trump saying that he's considering dismissing or firing Mueller. It's all on the media, which was undercut slightly by, I would have to say, one of the most respectable politicians on the Republican side. Let's take a look at this.
I had no idea how dirty this mess was involving Comey and Mueller over the years. And Comey manipulated through this leaking to get a special counsel when we don't need one. We know now for sure there is no collusion between this administration and Russia. Let's at least stop that facade. Let's stop that distraction.
Louis,
get rid of Mueller.
Well, what
he
about
is dirty. He created all kinds of problems.
Get rid of him. He's dirty. He's caused all kinds of problems. I couldn't tell you what he's done other than the fact that he's hired some people. He's caused all these problems.
All kinds of problems.
He's off in a room with a desk somewhere. I have no idea what he's doing. I don't think you do either.
It's gotten so blatant. He's caused all kinds of problems for this president and his administration. He's disrupting all the things they're trying to do without anyone finding out. What is he, like some kind of special investigator? Who hired this guy? Somebody get rid of him. He's about to disrupt everything that we're trying to do here.
Yeah, now, look, so a lot of people are very worried that theoretically Trump might take what should be an unthinkable step in firing the special counsel that's investigating him right now for obstruction of justice, thereby committing obstruction of justice to stop the investigation into obstruction of justice. It's justiceception, I've termed it.
I'm actually mostly surprised to find out that Louis Gohmert is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who keeps revving these things up in the media, because he has his own show.
That's true.
He has a podcast, I think he's part of the network, am I right?
Yeah, and look, it would be, I think as a lot of people have pointed out, it should be unthinkable if he were to fire him. A president cannot shut down investigations into his own illegal behavior. I think most people get how terrible that would be, that's obviously grounds for impeachment at that point. Whether it could ever happen under the Republican Congress, obviously is a different question. But think about that. Like, first of all, how much must he be hiding if he's willing to do something that theoretically might be unconstitutional and shutting this down to stop the investigation? You do not take those steps if you have nothing to hide. But then, again, to appeal to the people who theoretically don't care about this investigation, the sorts of crimes he's committing in terms of corruption, the massive amounts of money that he's ready to hand off to his real estate buddies, amongst others, federal contractors and all that. What's going to happen if we try to investigate wrongdoing there? Is he going to fire those special investigators? I think that this would be setting an incredibly dangerous precedent, an illegal precedent.
He's the only person who thinks doing this wouldn't look horrible.
I mean, just like the firing of James Comey.
It's just to double it up and then to see this as a pattern for how he gets out of things, he would miss that completely.
You would think, yes. Now, supposedly Rosenstein, who would be the person with the legal authority to fire Mueller, said this morning in his testimony that he wouldn't do that unless there was good cause. But he also thereby, by saying that, says that theoretically if there was a good cause, we might have to fire him, which I guess that makes sense. But what is the good cause that would justify shutting down this investigation? They've come up with all these arguments that theoretically someone he hired 7 years ago, 10 years ago, donated $3,000 to a Democrat. I got news for you. Any DC lawyer has contributed to one of the two parties. If a contribution makes it invalid that you could be involved in this investigation, you'll never have an investigation. And back when Ken Starr was investigating Bill Clinton's behavior, those guys had donated to Republicans. I don't remember a lot of these guys raising issues with that then, and there are 100. They were around back then to raise those objections if they had them. Odd that they didn't. Anyway, okay, let's move on to something slightly different before we take our second break.
In other words, wait for it to happen.
Yes, yes. I didn't use the master that
No, I hear you, I know, we're waiting.
We're waiting.
Old.
It's crazy, but it could happen anytime. Between the end of this show and the beginning of the next one, it could theoretically happen. Okay, we all know that our economy has left a great number of American workers behind, that it does not prioritize them, that it is there to serve corporate greed. But the state of our pay is actually even worse than you might think, even worse than those who are shedding light on it might think. So let's bring up this chart. because I came across this today, and it shows that right now, half of all American workers make less than $20 an hour. Now, if that's your headline, that should be scary. Like theoretically, half of the entire country is making less than $20 an hour. I mean, punch into any rent calculator where that lets you live in America, and that's stark. Half of America, $20 per hour. So that's something. But if we were in a just America, in a just economy, that would mean something far darker. Let's bring up this next chart. And what you're gonna see there is the real value of the minimum wage versus productivity. So you have productivity shooting up over literally the past 60 plus years, and yet the actual value of your dollar, if you're on the minimum wage, is not going up. In fact, in many years, it's going down when you should be making 2 or 3 times as much by then. Let's bring up this next chart. You're gonna see there what the minimum wage should be. If it just kept pace with other wages, it would be at $11.35, significantly higher than it is now. If it actually kept pace with productivity, which means if people were being paid for what they were producing, back in 2016, it would have been worth $18, almost $19. Some estimates put it even higher, which means that the story, the headline should not be that half of all Americans are making less than $20 an hour. It's that half of our goddamn country is on a just minimum wage. If it simply had kept pace with inflation, now not considering anything else, the fact that theoretically we should be doing better over time, not just keeping pace, half of our country is on a just minimum wage. Wow. That's crazy.
So half our country is making what teenagers at McDonald's should be making. I hate
should
the
be making, yes.
Keep going with, because there's lots of jobs at a minimum wage that isn't just the McDonald's one, and lots of people doing them that are not 15, 16-year-olds that are just getting
people
out
with
into the
15,
workforce.
16-year-olds.
Absolutely. So I saw a friend of mine. I think there was an Instagram post where she discovered, this is just LA, the median rate of rent in Los Angeles. It's a huge city. Is over $11,000 a month for rent, and we're talking, of course, month, because of the average of how many costs of living in this city. If you drive through the nice parts of town, you're like, oh, people may rent this. Or if you go to the beach, and you're like, oh, I wonder how much that place for rent is that where this beach house is. If you look at the average, so there's so many that are lower, but then so many that are so high. The median is $11,000 a month for rent.
Yeah.
So think about the people who, of course, everyone's not living in, but that's just the middle. So how much you have to make to support that? As plenty of adults, how do you pull that off? You don't have your 5, 6-year-olds work. Be like, well, you're contributing to the house. It's a place to be in where you have nowhere to turn.
Yeah.
And I understand, yes, again, this is LA, one of the most expensive cities in the world. I understand that. But the amount that people get paid, it's also comparable. I mean, you see the cost of living in other cities, it's probably just the same feel for how much you have coming in, for how much you have to actually put out. That's just for rent.
Yeah.
We're talking about food later, and then after that, health, shoes, clothes. I mean, this stuff isn't cheap. I go to cheap places to buy stuff for my kid. That shit is not cheap.
Yeah, it's still not cheap. Yeah, that's totally true. Can we go back to graphic 18, that first chart? Because there's something else here that I thought is a little bit scary. So you're seeing there, I know that you can screenshot this if you want. You're seeing the percentage of the population that makes at least that much money. As you go from left to right, you make more money. And so, I mean, once you get into $40 an hour, you're at like 3% of the population. Maybe 4 or 5% of the population makes more than that. $40 an hour, I mean, we're not talking about own your own island wages at that point. We're talking about adjusted for inflation, a good, solid, hardworking, full-time job back, 40, 50 years. And so, like in this, we're focusing on the fact that those who don't make a ton of money are being left behind, but we're all getting left behind. And when those at the bottom are making so little, it makes it easier for those who set these wages to justify paying people in the so-called middle class even less as well. I mean, 3 or 4% of the population is making more than theoretically the vast majority. I mean, think about the productivity gains. Think about the modernization, the information economy, computers, robots, all of that. We can produce so much more than we used to. And we're effectively, at best, arguably treading water with the 1950s. That is insane.
It's one of those things when it comes to productivity, and the fact that productivity is still up that rate based comparable to how badly we pay employees in this country, it actually is somehow still works out because there's a lot of studies, and I can't quote them because I remember talking about it in high school and college, about how if you just treat your workers in a certain way, the productivity you get back from them is so exponential. They're excited to come to work. They sleep well. They don't have migraines and stress about how they're gonna eat their next meal. They eat breakfast, they come to work, and you actually get good productivity out of them, and you benefit from it. It's crazy how the concept of treating people like humans works for you instead of treating like garbage, which apparently still works because you can still get productivity to go as where it is now. And we call American workers a lot of times, oh, we're just lazy, you don't do that. How dare you make $7 an hour, you lazy bum. And then that forced people to think they have to do even more for nothing.
Yeah, I think that more American workers need to look at those charts. Anyway, we are gonna take our second break now. When we come back, Senate Republicans take fairly unprecedented steps to try to shut down transparency in government, and then look at who's gonna be doing enforcement on those who try to wreck our environment. We're gonna name names when we come back from this break.
I'm super excited because we have different levels of members. They pay $10 a month, but there are some members that pay a little more. Our executive producers, for instance. My favorite thing about executive producers is that we have quarterly calls with them. I love that I'm getting a little transparency and I'm knowing what you guys like and dislike. Ideas on how to improve the show, topics that maybe we haven't heard of yet and you really want us to cover. We have so much respect for you because of the fact that you keep us independent and allow us to be uncensored, unfiltered, without worrying about corporate sponsors breathing down our necks and telling us what we can and can't say. So if you want to be a member, obviously no pressure. You can go ahead and join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions. The first topic that I said that we would discuss a little more is masturbation.
And then I was swimming in a hazelnut river.
Are you sure you're not doing mushrooms? Oh my God, I can achieve an orgasm by myself.
Fuck that, I am gonna talk about it because there should be no shame around. I think a lot about death because I love life.
That openness led to amazing sex.
And I keep saying to everybody, oh, I gotta go call my wife. I figured that was a good excuse and people can't say, hey, don't call your wife. I'm gonna release bliss.
It's so weird because at that moment I felt bliss and it smelled like lavender.
At the end, you get to go check, nice job. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you too will rock the world.
Establishment media, corporate media, as I like to say, it's really not journalism. It's kind of become this infotainment, substanceless drivel, and horse race obsession. They all live in this echo chamber, in this bubble, because they have no idea what like actual people are dealing with. Most people, had their jobs sent offshore or are now working 3 jobs, are struggling just to afford health care. I mean, in going across the country and reporting, I'm talking to people who have to like decide between, can I take my medication this week or get groceries? Like, they have no clue because they're more interested in, what Trump tweeted or the debt ceiling showdown and, all this stuff that they try to prop up in terms of like almost a movie script, like sensational and, protagonist and conflict and all this. And the victims of that are actual people. I think that's why people are responding to us because, I'm not out covering like the sexy story. My biggest passions is kind of showing that, the folks in the work that are part of the working poor now, or formerly middle class, these are not the takers. There's actually been a systematic con job. And they've been conned, and we've all been conned by, what I call the corporate media military industrial complex. Kind of long-winded, but there's been an active cabal, so to speak, of corporations, lobbyists, banks, politicians, and the media to essentially concentrate power into one vacuum and leave people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. It's not just the Rust Belt. I mean, all over the country, kind of scrapping for the crumbs. So what do we do? I think, honestly, people say, oh, I couldn't do it without you. I always thought those celebrities were bullshit artists. But we can't do it without you. I mean, it took years for them just to hire me because they didn't have the funds to hire a reporter. Now they've hired two more and possibly more on the way. So the first thing you could do is, if you like me, if you like what we're doing, let's create more. The Go campaign is a great way. Even if you only can give $10, $20, it all makes a big difference. So if you can contribute, and that's not just to hire more reporters, it takes an army, producers, editors, researchers, cameraman, all that. So the Go campaign, as well as become a member.
Welcome back to the Young Turks, everybody. John Iadarola, J.R. Jackson. A couple more stories to get to. Let's see. Eric Rooney said, so this is at hashtag TYT Live. Hopefully you have been tweeting us. Eric Rooney says, don't tell me if he gets fired. I want to find out tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern on The Apprentice. They do treat it like that, man. He really does think like, what does it matter if I fire somebody? I've been firing people for years. Everybody seemed to love it. Okay, let's jump right back into the stories because we don't have much time.
Wow.
Oh, did you have something you want to read?
No.
Oh no, read your fancy tweets.
No, I'm not reading anything.
Read your Twitters.
I'm just being clever.
Okay, we'll see how clever. Okay. This morning it was revealed that freedom of the press in the US took a little bit of a beating over the night. The longstanding tradition of allowing free access of media to conduct interviews of our elected officials was shut down. Reporters were told they would no longer be allowed to film or record audio of interviews in the Senate side hallways of the Capitol without special permission, which you might think, special permission. Okay, you need some permission, that's fine. We'll take a look at what this special permission looked like. Television reporters will need permission from senators, the Senate Rules Committee, the Senate Sergeant of Arms, and the Senate Radio and TV Gallery, depending on location, before conducting blah, blah, all of that.
Their mother, their father, grandmother.
Yes, you gotta talk to your grandmother. Now that is an issue, okay? Now you might think, well, I don't care about the media, I don't care if they get interviews. Okay, that's fine, you don't have to care about the reporters. This is going to allow senators and congresspeople to evade any sort of responsibility for what they do. We already know they're not doing town halls for the most part anymore. Sometimes having someone ambush them in a hallway and ask them about a vote that they just took or a speech they just gave is the only way that we make clear what they stand for and what they're doing and make sure that there's some sort of responsibility, culpability for what they've done. And it got even darker actually during the day. So reporters were calling in to find out about this policy and find out why they were doing this. And let's look at this tweet. Representative for Mike, that's actually Matrison, it's spelled incorrectly there, who gave the directive said no comment. Dylan Byers, who's a reporter for CNN, asked for her name, and she said, I'm not going to give you that, and hangs up. So you see the Washington Post had a reporter who was also hung up on, and the woman said, can I ask your name? And then apparently hung up, which means that you're not gonna get the name. Come on, you can't do that. So that's scary. Now, thankfully, there was immediately massive pushback from a lot of politicians, almost universally on the Democratic side, and media figures from online, TV, print, all of that. And thankfully, due to, I believe, this pressure, they have decided to reverse that rules change. So as Casey Hunt originally on Twitter reported, Senate Rules Committee reversed course on hallway interviews, saying you may continue to follow the rules as if it was yesterday. So thankfully,
they bowed to the pressure.
It looks like they did.
I like making comparisons like this because again, it's already been turned upside down on its head that we forget who these guys work for. They've been elected by people. In a way, we're their boss, right?
Yeah.
So at least they have to answer us. We at least have to know what the hell they're doing. Okay, let's go back to regular jobs. You're a cashier at the grocery store and you end your shift and they check what's in your cash register in case you slide to slip out a $100 bill.
Yeah.
It's underneath because we know that's where they keep the big bills.
Yeah.
So if your supervisor comes by and says, okay, we're doing check on the registers and then we do this and they count your money, you go, oh no, you don't get to look at the money that's in my register. I'm gonna put this away and you're not gonna fucking talk to me about it anymore. They're gonna go, oh, okay, well you follow your ass out the door and you're fired.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works in the real world. You can't say nobody gets to monitor what I'm doing on my job after you hired me. How dare you?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I dare, and you're gone.
Yeah,
Everyone else has to live this way.
Exactly, and people with great responsibility or power or something, Spider-Man, look it up. You know what I'm saying there. So yeah, like these people have incredible power to influence our country, to influence the world. The idea that they're going to reduce transparency. Like we've been clear that Donald Trump hates the media and wants to do what he can to change libel laws and all that. But this wasn't Donald Trump. This was Senate Republicans trying to make this change. And think about the big votes that they're going to take in the near future. When they vote on Trump Care, when they steal health insurance from 20 to 30 million Americans, when they change the tax code, when they basically cut corporate taxes down to 1/3 of what they are now, they do not want a camera in their face after that. And that's what they're trying to set up for us. Thankfully,
the people that gave them money and lobbyists, if they went to them and said, hey, I want to know what you guys are doing to live up to what I gave you, what if they went, nope, not gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly. They'll always have access in America, unfortunately. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that donor and corporate influence. Under Donald Trump, our environment is screwed, and the EPA is every day getting swampier and swampier. And in this video, we're gonna break down 2 recent hires that have to do with our environment that make clear who this administration is going to serve. So first I wanna talk about Patrick Traylor. That apparently is his actual name. Partner at Hogan Lovells was recently hired as the EPA's Deputy Assistant Administrator in the Office of Enforcement and Compliance Assurance. With both sounds like the most boring job in the world, but also represents a very powerful position. We're talking about one of the main investigative lawyers that's intended to protect the environment in the EPA. So let's talk about who this person is and where his loyalties might lie. Back when he was working at Hogan Lovells, his clients included all of these different corporations that you're gonna see in this list. Daimler AG, we can bring it up, thanks. Dominion Energy, Edison Mission Energy, Flint Hills Resources, Invista, the Koch brothers, NRG Energy, which by the way is a terrible name for an energy corporation, it's redundant. Southern California Edison, TransCanada, by the way, you've heard them in the news for their pipelines, and Venture Global LNG. So I don't doubt that you need an experienced lawyer in this position. But a guy who for literally decades has been defending the interests of some of the biggest polluters and environmental aggressors in our country is not the person who should be investigating them, especially when you consider that the day he leaves that position at the EPA, he's gonna go back to an incredibly profitable position, probably for one of those corporations.
It's amazing. You'd have to try and make it up. And I not hate the term, but I don't know if it's too harsh, the murderous row of people you appoint to be parts of it, so the head already, Scott Pruitt already, but then also people underneath just to make sure that it's chocked full of people with the exact opposite interest in mind for what the department is supposed to do. So instead of the proposed policies of getting rid of the Department of Education, getting rid of the EPA, abolishing the IRS, as Ted Cruz liked to say, instead, we'll just chock it full of people that will virtually destroy it from the inside out anyway, and then say we're staffing it when actually you're just eating it alive.
Exactly.
Just to get to your interests. I don't know how we can keep accepting it. It's blatant.
It's blatant. It is blatant, and we've got another name for you, perhaps even worse than Trailer. Let's talk about Jeffrey Bossert Clark, nominated by President Donald Trump. It was in a graphic, they got me to say it. Now I feel dirty. On Tuesday to serve as the Justice Department's top environmental lawyer. So this isn't the EPA, but it still has to do with those who abuse the environment. Clark previously represented BP after the 2010 Deepwater Horizon drilling rig explosion and Macondo oil well rupture that killed 11 workers and was, as you probably remember, the largest offshore environmental disaster in US history. He was there fighting for BP at that point. But it's not just a financial thing. There's the financial component. There's also an ideological component to where his loyalties lie. So he was a partner in the Washington office of Kirkland and Ellis. Previously has represented the US Chamber of Commerce in lawsuits challenging the federal government's authority to regulate carbon emissions. In court, he has repeatedly argued that it is inappropriate to base government policymaking on the scientific consensus presented by the IPCC. So there, he's making money. But he also had a blog, by the way, where for a long time he's talked about how we shouldn't be listening to scientists when it comes to the environment. He said, when did America risk coming to be ruled by foreign scientists in the apparatchiks at the United Nations? And as made clear by the NRDC's Clean Air Program Director, he has a long history of opposing climate action for corporate and ideological clients.
Because foreign scientists are all the ones that are saying there's something going on with our climate. American scientists, they're on board.
Exactly,
100% of they're like, oh, America. Forget the reality of science. Let's just go ahead and say that we're the best and we can do whatever we want. It's not gonna hurt that bad.
Yeah, and look, so they're staffing up the EPA, but this is the EPA, it's also Department of Justice as well. And all those people who are supposed to be watchdogs making sure that we don't sell off the environment, our mineral rights and all the public lands, that we don't pollute, that we don't ruin our streams and our water and our air, our coastlines, that we don't drill every drop of oil out of our land while we still can. Those people, man, they're all hacks for industry now. They're all people who seem like true believers that don't believe that climate change is happening, and they have been paid to hold that position in the past.
And then after they do, and they say that it's for the benefit of America and the wealth of America, let's refer back to a previous story we just did. The wealth of America is not going back to the people who they need you to continue to vote for people who are gonna put you in place to be like, look at the wealth of America that you don't get any part of.
Exactly.
What's the benefit?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe you get to drive through a nice neighborhood, look at the fancy houses you can't afford. I guess that's a silver lining. Anyway, that unfortunately is all the time we have. Damn, there's another good story we wanted to get to, but that's what happens. We are gonna take a break. Thank you, by the way, JR. It's not often we get to do a two-person panel
here. We talk too much anyway,
so
it doesn't matter, right?
Certainly do.
Who would have thought I have the same problem everyone else does?
The same problem, after criticizing them previously.
I'm gonna go back to doing that tomorrow.
Yeah, I probably will too. We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, my co-host from Think Tank, Hannah Cranston, is gonna be joining us, leading us through a second hour, and TYT Network's Nerd Alert host, Kim Horcher, is also gonna be here. So tweet us in advance of that. We'll be back after just a few minutes.
TYT is unique in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions.
I feel like I
missed out.
So what is going on? If I don't eat, my head's gonna explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was the kid in the pool with the shirt on. Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of me, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more likely to win. They do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize that.
The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln.
I don't know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfucked the world?
You and I are a disaster.
Don't stereotype all cops, don't stereotype all anything. Blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter, that's pretty good progress.
I didn't know you could leave positive comments.
It's a very TYT thing. I'll show you a whole bunch of depressing stuff so that at the end I can give you hope. Winning is, in terms of change and positive change, is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down, huh? Is that what you're saying? Fuck it, let's go do it. And that's why I keep thanking you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention.
Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay strong.
The real legend in the room is Jesus Godoy, doing stage managing here. The Steven Spielberg of internet TV. Come here for a sec. Okay, we got to get you back on, man. There he is, man. Chief Justice. What are you doing stage managing? Yeah,
why are you here tonight? You should be on the panel, dude.
So that's like Spielberg coming in on a movie and doing like best boy or best grip, or what do they call those? There's like Grip, and then there's Best Boy. There's a Best Boy, right? Yeah, there's a Best Boy. That is the most unfortunate name for any job ever. Hey, what do you do? I'm a Best Boy. All right, dude. Hey, listen, man, whatever pays the bills. So I now kind of have this 1.5 year sense. What's your sense?
You mean how long is he going to be in office?
Yeah, and how does this end and all that?
Dude, there's no way of knowing. My biggest fear is it's not that he's a right-wing, fascist. Mm-hmm. It's the gross incompetence.
That's what I've been saying from day one.
The security team is that it's an inability to understand how the world actually functions. And added to this is casual racism, layered on top of ignorance because he's never read a book. So you have a president who's going through life with whatever the 1950s racist mentality is that he got from his father that he probably never gave up, who thinks somehow we can fuck with China because they're Chinese.
And that Steve Bannon guy thinks he's so fucking clever, like, oh, let me do this populist thing, and let me do that, and let me do this. But if you're racist, you're not that clever. I mean, you couldn't even figure out they were all the fucking same. You know what I'm saying?
Look, man, the middle sucks sitting on the edge sucks. Yes, that's true, but they don't suck equally.
Do you know? Did you already do all this? I don't want to.
No, I can do it when we come back. I did not do all of it, nor will I do all of it, but I will do some of it.
There's a mic open here. The mic open?
Y'all sound dumb.
Oh my God. You know what they were, right? Welcome back to the Young Turks, everybody. It's the second hour. And blessedly, I'm not going to be in charge anymore. Actually, my co-host from Think Tank, Anna Grace, is going to be in charge.
Just like I am on Think Tank. And also, I'm here.
I'll check that. I'll get some fact checking going on. Sounds like
Kim's here.
Sounds like fake news.
Kim.
I was trying to get to you when she made some sort of disgusting assertion.
Just like it is on Think Tank.
Anyway, Kim, you know what? In fact, let's just talk to Kim for the next 20 minutes. How's it going, Kim? E3 is happening. It's really exciting. So many games.
I'm going tomorrow.
You're going to be going there.
I'm not hyped.
Not hyped.
No, I don't care.
Oh well, that's sad. But
yes. Watch our coverage.
Yes, it's.
That was great, Sal.
Yeah, sounds like it's gonna be great. Let me read a couple of tweets before Hannah takes over. Let's see. Andrew says, so please tell me the ACLU is suing Congress for violating the First Amendment. Yeah. The ACLU might have gotten involved if they hadn't reversed course as quickly as they did, but thankfully they did the right thing due to overwhelming public pressure. Let's see. What's up? Oh, okay, sorry. Let's see. And Gabby Marita, I like this. This takes me back to the initial month after the inauguration. She says, is there a single Trump administration staffer that has a fundamental belief in the mission of the agency they represent? If there was, they wouldn't have gotten the position, which I think Gabby totally gets.
Very true.
And before we jump back in, one little thing I'm supposed to read. Tomorrow night, the epic return of Old School. It is going to be at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time, available for members only, of course, which you either are or can quickly become by going to tytnetwork.com/join. And this is not just Old School. This is very traditional Old School. Ben Mank, Wes Clark Jr. and Mark Thompson, which sounds like a hell of a lot of fun. You're not going to want to miss it. That is tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about some stuff?
Yeah, we're going to jump into things that aren't as fun to start off, but then we have some fun stories to finish with, so stick around for that.
Jurors in Bill Cosby's sexual assault case started their second day of deliberations today after a bizarrely short 6-minute presentation from the defense. Now, the jury will decide whether Cosby is guilty of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault, each of which carries a possible 10-year sentence. Now, today they went back to the judge and asked 4 questions, some of which they asked him to repeat parts of Cosby's statements to authorities and asked the court to define the phrase without her knowledge in one of the charges against him, obviously probably talking about consent there. Now, just for a little bit of background, this is the case of Andrea Constand, who is just one of about 60-ish women who have come forward and alleged that Bill Cosby sexually assaulted them. Now, prosecutors called 12 witnesses over a week of testimony, and Constand was chief among them. In clear and firm terms, she said that Cosby, a powerful Temple alum, mentored her and took an interest in her career like a father figure. Now, Constand, who is a former Temple University women's basketball staffer, who says Cosby took advantage of his role as her mentor and slipped her pills that left her frozen and unable to stop him from touching her breasts and genitals. In fact, she mentioned a quote that he said when he was doing so, saying that put them down, they're your friends. They will take the edge off. Now, defense,
the pills are her friends?
The pills are her friends, and that they will take the edge off. Now, defense attorneys argued that the sexual contact was part of a consenting relationship between Cosby and Constand, even though Cosby has admitted to giving her pills, but said they were 3 Benadryl, not anything that was any more effective or a regular sort of rape drug that we're used to seeing. Now, the Cosby defense presentation was startlingly fast. Like I mentioned in the beginning, there was 1 witness, a police detective, who was on the stand for a total of 6 minutes, which is obviously a very sharp contrast to the 5 days that the prosecution took for their presentation. But I want to call to light something that I think a lot of the media is missing in this. So when all of these headlines came out, they're like, oh, their defense was only 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then they said that they rested, and that was really the focus here. But I want to call to attention something that they said in their closing, that his lawyer said in his closing argument, saying that Cosby was a flawed man, an unfaithful husband, but also a brilliant comedian who not only taught us how to smile, but how to love each other no matter what we look like. Which to me is just so absolutely disturbing to use that as some sort of, okay, maybe he did some, effed up shit, but he made us laugh, guys. He brought love to televisions. I mean, like in real life, total piece of shit, but he made us laugh. So whatever, he raped a woman. That's basically what they're saying, which is so unbelievably messed up. And that's really what they pinned their entire argument on, was showing that he was a good guy and not showing and not using other people to sort of, as witnesses to sort of defend his actions, but just saying, oh, but he's like, come on, you've seen him on TV. He likes Jell-O. How could somebody who likes Jell-O
Have you guys seen Ghost Dad?
Yeah. I have a problem with Mr. McMonigal, who is the defense attorney's general description of events, because the way he speaks, it's almost as if to totally misunderstand how a victim would react after the fact. And it's a lot of, it does sound like victim blaming. Like, why would you still be in contact with him? It preys on a key misunderstanding of how a victim's mindset could be after the traumatic event, after this. And it's gross to me how dirty you would have to play to like mischaracterize that.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's a misunderstanding. I actually think it was very purposeful. I think it was very, like a lot of the times in rape cases, they will try to make the witness or make the victim look like they're unstable or that they wanted it, right? And so they're saying that it was consensual, even though he's admitted to giving her pills. And like, not that this has too much weight, but she's a lesbian. So like it's very difficult to prove that it's consensual.
Well, even if you call, I'm sorry, John, the Benadryl, your little friend, and it's not.
Which don't.
Don't do that. But also, if it's not a hard rape drug per se, what is the point of Benadryl? Cosby used Benadryl to make him sleepy. It's there to make you sleepy. I don't see how that's incredibly different from the point of.
Yeah, it might be a little bit weaker, but it's still the same. Like if you're gonna say it wasn't the really bad drug that he would have theoretically used to make her sleepy, he used this other one that makes you sleepy. I would have gone with a different direction in that. And yeah, so I mean, it seems like that sort of defense is pretty common in cases like this, where they're basically hoping, like, please, just think he's a good guy. Think that she's clearly, you don't know her, you know him, you grew up with him. He's probably not lying, right? You don't know her, she's kind of shifty. She maybe just is in this for the TV. And they're hoping that people will buy that. It seems like a weak defense though, when you consider that those jurors have got to be aware of the fact that, if not literally, behind her, 59 or so other women who are saying that he's done the same thing or possibly even worse. At that point, I think that simply saying he's a reputable guy, he couldn't have done the things that you think he did or that they're saying he did, that doesn't hold up when you've got literally scores of women claiming that he's done some sort of assault.
Yeah, so I have 2 points that I want to comment on that. The first being that even when the media is talking about this, and I don't think this is on purpose, but they're trying, honestly, they're trying to like thesaurus the way that they're talking about Cosby. So they'll be like, sweater wearing America's dad, and still really painting him. Like I was reading one of these articles, I don't remember if it was a CNN or something like that, but one of them said like sweater wearing like America's dad. Like, no, you still can't paint him in this positive light because that's going to influence the way that people look at him. And then I think the other point that you bring up when talking about how, oh, she's probably in this to like get TV time or be in the limelight, I think anybody, whether they be woman or man who has experienced any sort of sexual assault, they know that there's no way that they would anybody would voluntarily go under the scrutiny of having to deal with one of these cases.
Just for the record, I'm saying they're saying she did that. I'm not saying she did that.
I know, but I'm just saying for people who are maybe saying that, oh, she wants her 15 minutes, whatever, like they are dragging this woman, and she is so unbelievably brave to go stand up for those 60-ish women that behind her. And so I really applaud her for doing that, because I can't even imagine how difficult this must be. That must have been her dealing with that in the first place, dealing with years of having to know that happened and having that and the scars of that, and then now having to testify against sweater wearing America's dad.
Yeah, pill popping America's creepy uncle.
That's what they should change it.
I mean, it's fair. You get to describe him, right? That's what the media says.
Yeah, I think it's true. All right, let's move on. The Trump administration has put a new notch in their belt of assaults against the environment, this time removing a rule that protected endangered whales and sea turtles. Now, the rule was intended to limit the numbers of endangered whales and sea turtles getting caught in fishing nets off the West Coast. Now, they are claiming that the existing protections are already working, so these new rules aren't necessary. And in fact, a spokesman with the Federal Fisheries Service, who actually worked to kill this rule, says that economically, the new rule would have had a much more substantial impact on the fleet than we originally realized. He also said that the bottom line is this is a fishery that's worked hard to reduce its impact. He missed that whole part about the bottom line is profit, but I think that's sort of what he meant there. Now, this rule would have applied to endangered fin, humpback, and sperm whales, short fin pilot whales, and common bottlenose dolphins, as well as endangered leatherback sea turtles, loggerhead sea turtles, olive ridley sea turtles, and green sea turtles. Now, for humpbacks, there's some, I guess, species that are only 411 of them left. So removing one in one of these sorts of nets would have a huge impact on the population. And so this is gonna have really lasting effects. And the rule that they were trying to implement originally would have actually affected fewer than 20 fishing vessels, okay? And these are fishing vessels that use drift gill net fishing as a way to catch swordfish, which, as we know, are basically these sorts of walls of nets that the animals can't see. They're invisible to the animals, and so they get caught in it, and when they try to back up, it catches their gills and sort of like kills them in this very like suffocating manner. And so it's really this indiscriminate fishing practice that can catch all of these other endangered species. And it doesn't seem like it would have had a huge economic setback for these, the fishermen, which I want to make sure that all people have, economic stability. But it seems like it's going to have a really big impact on the animal population. So this is really unfortunate.
Yeah. I think when I read that description, the mile-long nets, I think obviously the world is a complex place, and even if you're a smart person who pays attention and tries to learn, even once you're out of school, you try to learn more about the world. We don't know anything about anything generally, but this is an area where I think the idea even smart people have about how, like this fishing vessel or any way that food is produced, especially animal food, like the idea that they have is so far off the reality. If you ask, like, okay, a commercial fisher, he's trying to catch a swordfish, what do you picture? You picture some dude with a pole, basically, because that's the experience we have.
Right.
A mile-long net, I didn't know that was possible. That seems crazy. A mile? Do you know how long a mile is? Imagine being a fish trying to avoid that. And so, like, if you just say, oh, they're putting all these regulations on fishermen. They can't do that anymore. A lot of Americans would be like, yeah, let that guy fish. But if they're trying to shut down a little bit of these mile-long nets, that I think is a very different idea. And I think that people need to know more about the way that we produce food.
It's a good idea it's good that you brought up that visualization, because I read a mile long and I just went, and looked right past it. But you can't avoid a mile long if you're a whale or a turtle, which is much smaller. I think this goes to serve
Well, they can't see it even if they tried to avoid it.
I mean, it just says some animals are alerted by the pinging sounds, but I don't think all of them.
So some of them, just to give you guys a little bit more background context on that. So these basically walls of net, they have weights at the bottom that also have these sorts of pinging that Kim was mentioning that supposedly alert some of the animals, but obviously since they were trying to implement this new rule, it didn't work all of the time. And so a lot of endangered species were getting caught up in it. And just to John's point really quick, is when you're talking about all of the fish that are getting caught in it for this mile, like these are swordfish fishermen. Right? And so if there's other fish and other animals that are caught in it, what do? They just throw it back in the ocean. And so it's like all of these dead animals that they just sort of throw back in the ocean. Like, I'm all for like people eating as well, but at the same time, like this is huge waste.
It's very short-sighted for short-term gains and long-term destruction. It's pretty emblematic, I think.
Yeah, I think also one other point. I think most people have heard of the idea of overfishing. They know that that's some vague threat that at some point could affect the world. But again, I think that if they knew, like not all nets are a mile long, obviously, but the way that fishing is done, commercial fishing, it is mechanized and automatic in a way that I don't think most people realize, and they don't understand what needs to be done to stop overfishing.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, because I think when it comes to like talking about overfishing, people are like, oh, okay, that'll be like one less item on like the sushi menu, but they don't realize that they're killing off all these species. And
exactly.
They're gonna it's gonna affect so many different communities that rely on the fish. Plus, I love whales, so I don't want them to be hurt. That's it. That's all I have for that one. All right, moving on. A Wyoming mayor has opted to remove photos of Trump and Pence in their town hall and replace it with the picture of a Native American chief. Now, Mayor Pete Muldoon of Jackson, Wyoming, directed town staff members to make the swap on June 5th, saying there is no requirement to have a picture of the president displayed in the building. He says that when the town of Jackson decides to honor such a divisive person, it is taking sides against some of its residents. We are required to display signs of respect. Our respect is earned, not demanded. Dictators like Joseph Stalin required their portraits to be displayed everywhere. Luckily, we do not live in a dictatorship, even though it might feel that way sometimes. Now, some people did not agree with the move. In fact, Teton County Commissioner Paul Vogelheim, who also chairs the county's Republican Party, called the move totally disrespectful, to which the mayor responded, "We aren't required to display signs of respect. Our respect is earned, not demanded." Oh snap. Now, just to give you guys some background context, Donald Trump did win Wyoming by astounding numbers, but Jackson, Wyoming was actually the only county that Hillary won by astounding numbers, getting a whopping 58% of the vote compared to 31% for Donald Trump. Now, the picture that they were replacing is a picture of Native American Chief Washakie, who remains a well-known figure among many Jackson residents, and he brokered peace treaties and settlement deals between his tribe and the US government. So it seems like I like peace. I like brokering deals that work for everybody.
I think this asks an important question, which is, should all public buildings honor the president blindly? And I think the answer to that was answered by the mayor, which is no, because we live in a democracy. We don't have a requirement that we all pledge fealty to whoever the president is or whoever the leader is. We don't all sit in a weird cabinet meeting where we're just complimenting Donald Trump and giving him our love and devotion. That's ridiculous. And if there's no rule that says it has to be there, and there's no long-standing tradition that it has to be there, the mayor also said, I would take it down if it was Obama. And it sounds totally fair to me. If there's an ordinance made by the city council, sure, but there's no official rule in place that says he has to do this.
I think that's a really good point, and that's kind of what I was thinking. So when you leave LAX, there used to be a picture of Obama up, and I was an Obama supporter, but at the same, and I think it was in customs or something like that. And I was an Obama supporter, but at the same time, every time I passed it, I was like, this is really bizarre. I thought it was really weird, and I go for it.
I mean, I know that a lot, my hometown has got the mayor's name is on a sign as you drive into it or something, which is sort of weird, I guess. I don't know, I didn't see that. I know that you hear the mayor on the LAX speakers, obviously, as you're walking around. I think if you wanted to not have any of them, I think that's perfectly fine, and it is sort of weird. I know when I was in ROTC, obviously you have the president, you have the vice president, you have pictures, and the military does have a long tradition of you always have the commander-in-chief and the vice president there. But it is weird. I do think that he's being consistent, at least. He would take down Obama. I think that if you're gonna take one down, just take them all down. Just take down the pictures, or swamp it. Put up a picture of Washakie and put up a picture of dozens of other people throughout history who haven't gotten the recognition and due that they deserve. I wouldn't have it on a case-by-case basis, though.
I think there might. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I do think that this was sort of a special case where he was trying to use the symbolism of this chief who stood for peace, and also sort of an FU to Trump, since Trump has implemented these policies. I mean, specifically talking about the pipeline that have really detrimentally affected the Standing Rock tribes and things like that. So I do think I think there is some symbolism here that maybe not the most PC move, but I would rather have somebody who stood for peace and protections than, especially since this guy helped broker relationships between the tribe and the US government, and Trump's like, nah, F you guys.
The Grand Teton National Monument is one of the first national monuments established under Teddy Roosevelt's ruling that we do this and help preserve and conserve our national parks, our natural splendor. And right now Trump has, some places are not under consideration anymore, but he sent out a secretary to go evaluate our national monuments to see if they should be, in any way reduced for whatever reason. It's just a coincidence that some of them lay above fossil fuels or important water resources.
Or minerals,
And I think that even flies in the face of what this community relies on and loves and stands for, which is that national park right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if it gets down to one individual chooses, well, then there's going to be a lot of people in the South that are going to be like, screw Obama, I hate him, he's devastating America, and they're going to put up a picture of Andrew Jackson or something. I just think when you leave it up to just one individual, it becomes easily partisan. Even if I 100% agree with replacing this particular picture with the other one, I think let's take a step away. As we're taking all these other steps towards authoritarianism, let's take a step away and remove all images. In fact, let's cover Trump's face. You can't see him anymore when he walks in public. It's too close to North Korea, it makes me uncomfortable.
We were talking about your ROTC, right?
Yeah.
This is a town hall. Do all public buildings need to abide by this? It seems ridiculous.
I said they should take them all down, yeah.
No, John.
Not take down the town halls, take down the pictures, I think.
John.
Okay.
All right, one more story and then we'll take a quick break. Last night, the Golden State Warriors won the NBA championships, and one way that they won't be celebrating is by going to the White House. Now you can see this tweet that claims that they have an exclusive that the NBA championship winning Warriors decided unanimously as a team that they will boycott the White House invitation to meet President Trump. Now, if you have been on the internet in the past few hours, there are some rumors that the team is saying that they haven't decided and that it's still sort of up in the air. But last month, Michelle Roberts, who is the executive director of the NBA Players Association, stated that if the Cleveland Cavaliers or Golden State Warriors won the NBA championship, neither team would accept an offer to visit the White House. Now, like I said, it's still sort of up in the air whether they will or not. But if you sort of look at some of the history from this team, I don't think it is too plausible. Now, the team's coach, Steve Kerr, has called Trump a blowhard who couldn't be more ill-suited to be president. And he said that he used racist and misogynist words. Further, one of Steph Curry's, their star player, if you guys are familiar. One of his sponsors is Under Armour, and the CEO of Under Armour said that Trump was a real asset, and Steph Curry responded by saying, I agree if you remove the ET.
No one's ever heard of that before.
Okay, so do you guys think they'll go or they won't go?
Well, they haven't made an official decision, that's what I read.
Right, yeah.
And they haven't even received an official invite, I read. Yet.
I think it's expected when you go, like just like the Super Bowl winners, half of them sort of
Olympians.
went. I mean, it seems unlikely, judging by the coaches and the star players' former words and feelings about it. I mean, it seems to be relying, or the reports right now seem to be relying a lot on this Josh Brown tweet. I think it's highly unlikely they'll go, but if individual players wanted to, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that if the team theoretically goes, I think that it is going to be sparsely populated with players. You might have like some kid who's interning is like, hey, it's still the White House. And he might want to go, but I don't think a lot of the players are going to want that. Like that picture would dog them for the rest of their career. Their fans would feel betrayed. And so I want to say in advance of it happening, I apologize from all the racist comments that they're going to receive from conservative Americans who attack them for not taking this opportunity to meet our jackass in chief.
Yeah.
Because you know it's going to happen. There's going to be more stuff spray painted on the outside of their homes, and the tweets are never going to stop from the people who are going to attack them for this.
It's funny how often athletes face fire over this. Do I even need to mention Colin Kaepernick?
You just did.
I did.
You did.
But did I need to? Because
no.
We know he's got all this backlash against him for speaking his mind, for making himself clear, for doing what he is allowed to do, which is protest. That's an American thing to do. You pledging blind fealty to someone, or whatever you may call it, that's not the definition of patriotism.
Well, I think the problem is, and I think sports are an incredible thing that I think can bring our country together, right? I think people from all different sort of political backgrounds like to more or less like to watch sports. But I think what happens is a lot of the time people look at sports players and they're like, we own you, do this for me. Like we're the, you know what I mean? They see themselves, they're like, oh, we won this or we lost this, whatever it may be. And they're like these creatures that they think that they can just scream obscenities at and attack them when they miss a shot, like all of these insane things. And then when they find out they also have a brain and beliefs behind that, I think people lose their flipping minds.
Yeah, they think that because I have cheered you for the way you extend your arm really fast.
You helped.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know anything about their experience growing up. You don't know anything about who they are as a person.
There's quite a bit of dehumanization.
Yeah, exactly. And furthermore, one reason why I would advise them and everyone else to not go on these trips is it would be great for the White House to become basically a ghost town for the next almost 4 years, tragically, possibly 8. Especially because there's nothing Donald Trump wants more than to be surrounded by famous people, for people to want to meet him. He wants to be accepted in that way, and I want him to suffer.
But he has Ted Nugent on his side.
He does have Ted Nugent, but even he knows
he'll never be alone.
Okay, he's an idiot.
Ted Nugent?
He's an idiot, but even he knows how pathetic that is to hang out with Ted Nugent. Even he was disappointed when Ted Nugent showed up. He wants Like he wants, what movie's out? He wants Gal Gadot to show up at the White House. It's probably not going to happen, but he wants that acceptance. But I don't want him to get it, and I want him to feel really bad.
I want him to feel all of the prickles on his thin skin.
Exactly. Yes. And I want it to slowly wear him down until his inevitable demise.
Nice, real nice.
Natural causes.
All right, guys, we're gonna take a short break and we'll be right back.
John's in trouble.
Welcome to the Control Room, exclusive members coverage of 2IT postgame live from Rebel headquarters in sunny Los Angeles. So Jason, the air is electric after yesterday's postgame.
He's talking about Miami. You know, the only thing about this, Jason, is we've heard the Miami stories. I'm looking at Kasperian's interest here. She's giving him the cordial glance to the side, but I just don't know if it's really there.
Oh, that's where the vagina is.
Okay, that joke landed like Apollo 13 there, and then Kasperian gives him the courtesy laugh, gives him the Edwin wave.
Had you had sex at that point when you took that class?
Anyways, so
hold on a minute. He's found an opening.
Cinnamon light.
Is he finding his way to come back, Jason? Unbelievable! Jack Kruger coming back. With a comment, no one would have seen this coming.
And he's in the mood, and there's some music in the background. He's got the sideburns, he's got the long hair in her 30s.
He won't fan himself. There's no way he's ready to. I mean, I've expected.
She's like, well, that was something.
He's got it.
Okay.
It's unbelievable.
Every dog has its day, and this dog is having the best day of his damn life.
That was an outstanding postgame. If tonight's postgame is anything like last night's, we were in for another
Exactly right, Francis. And don't forget to check out the TYT postgame after the Young Turks every weekday on tytnetwork.com/memberslive.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Fuck you.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody.
I am your host, Francis Maxwell.
Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports. Turks and Jerks. TYT Sports.
Steph Curry signed with Under Armour.
Tom Brady's mad, by the way.
Do you hear me? Back on TYT Sports!
Actually, leave a link in the description box below instead of lying about leaving a link in the description box below.
Editor, throw up another picture of the UK bacon. And another. And in fact, throw in another one.
Let me see your belly.
Beast mode.
with John Iadarola and Kim Horcher. So we're gonna jump into some of these TYT live tweets. The first one's from Sabrina Hartman, who says, "Yay, we get an awesome Think Tank Nerd Alert mashup for hour 2, and I'm loving it." I'm loving it too.
Yeah, we also had a Think Tank Nerd Alert mashup last week when she was the guest on Think Tank.
Yeah. The next one is from Chase Ibanez, who says, "Is Cosby aware he only played a doctor on TV? He has zero qualification to assess drug dosing and interactions." Yes, that's a good point. Honestly, like we didn't really get into this in the story. His excuse being like, "Oh, I just gave her 3 Benadryl." Honestly, if you gave her 3 drinks, you know what I mean, and she was not able to consent, still sexual assault, bro. So it doesn't really make it better by saying Benadryl. The next one, Nick or Gaming Pegasus says, "Being a comedian is not a defense for drugging and raping a woman." Yes, hit the nail on the head there.
His mind is going to be blown.
And Pete the Rock says, "One reason the GOP would hinder the EPA rules is because animals don't work and can't pay for anything. They're useless to them."
Hey, some animals work. Okay.
Some animals do
Service
work.
animals.
And they like to eat animals.
paid in treats.
They just don't understand that how ecology works, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult science. Oh, for the GOP, it's really hard to
It
get
is.
their hands on. All right, let's jump into our first story. McDonald's has announced that they'll be using a new filter for job applicants, a Snapchat filter. Now, the chain started accepting Snap applications in Australia last month, and starting today in the US, you will be able to submit a Snap application to work at McDonald's. It allows potential employees to make video submissions with a special filter that shows them wearing a McDonald's uniform. I think we have a picture here. Maybe, oh yeah, so basically there's like a snap and then there's a picture where it basically puts them in the McDonald's uniform, and then they talk about why they would be a great McDonald's employee. The video audition can then be submitted to McDonald's Snapchat account. After that, McDonald's will send back a link to the application and digital careers page. Now, McDonald's said allowing application through Snapchat will aid hiring efforts because many of its applicants are between the ages of 16 and 24. And they just want to be where the kids at. They want to be hip and cool. So they're trying something new.
It's like, what's up, fellow kids? It's us, your friends from Mickey D's.
Yeah.
Why don't you just join the Snaps party with us?
We're gonna chat Snaps with stuff. This is stupid. This is really
feel,
stupid.
John?
It's so stupid and condescending.
Yes.
How do we get them millennials? You know how you get millennials?
Millennials like Snapchat.
How are we gonna get people to work? I mean, people desperately need money. How are we gonna get applications? You read about at some of these places, they get 1,000+ applications for these jobs. That's not a problem. This is a stupid publicity stunt that also sort of smears millennials as being so shallow that they would theoretically try to work at a place purely because they appeal to them over Snapchat.
Right, and like it's the filter to show them in the uniform. So if you look good in the uniform, you should do this for a job.
There's a weird
Appearances matter
thing.
more than anything else. McDonald's.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
You should work for their marketing team.
I'm loving it.
I'm loving it.
Their senior director of human resources for the US said that they thought that Snap applications were a great way to allow us to meet job seekers where they are, their phones, which you're right, is totally condescending because if you're seeking a job, presumably you're going through like the normal routes of like either going and submitting an application at some sort of brick and mortar place or you're doing through the internet or whatever it may be. But to think that like, oh, like I don't have a job, what am I gonna do? Like the only way I can do this is through Snapchat is absurd and so belittling of millennials.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's fine, I guess. And I know that the person that came up with this campaign, I don't blame that person. That person does social media outreach, blah, blah, blah for McDonald's. And they had some out of touch older person say, do something fun with the socials media. That's why they came up with this, I'm sure. But it's not necessary. I think it makes everybody look bad. It doesn't matter, but it's stupid.
Social media is great to get a job. LinkedIn, That's the social media to get a job.
Disagree.
Or to piss off everyone you know.
That's how I got this job. So I am a big proponent of LinkedIn.
That's how bad LinkedIn is. Just I should have used Snapchat. I could have gotten the Melensters.
Johnny Pie, you are gonna pay for that next time we're on Think Tank.
I'm already a fan.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. By the way, the person who's going to be watching all these applications, enjoy the dongs.
No, you can't put a filter on a dong, I don't think.
Just but you can put a dong in front of a camera. Trust me.
I get a box of fries, cut a hole.
Kim, what?
We should have ended this when I asked you.
I'm sorry, Kim, that came way too quickly.
That's what.
Oh, no. All right, moving on.
Okay.
Women at a women's only screening of Wonder Woman in Belgium were given gift baskets of cleaning supplies, diet pill pamphlets, and chocolate, in a move that either completely missed the point of a female-led superhero movie or was just blatantly sexist. Now, attendees at a woman-only June 6th screening of the film at a Belgian theater reportedly received bags full of sponges, diet pill pamphlets, squeegees, chocolate, noodles, and chips. So take a look at some of these incredible gift baskets. Ooh,
hey, some of that stuff is fine, like the nachos. Who doesn't want nachos? You're going to the movie.
Valid point.
And a squeegee is useful. Like you want to have one in your car.
A woman's magazine, diet pill pamphlet.
Hey, quinoa.
Now,
women like quinoa.
The theater is maintaining that the items were just products from the theater's sponsors and that they certainly weren't intended to cause offense. Whether or not they were intended to cause offense, you should have thought about it. First of all, I don't even care. I frankly don't even care that the movie was Wonder Woman.
Amazing.
I know, agreed. But I don't even care that I don't even care that the movie was Wonder Woman. I think if you're giving gift baskets to women and you're including cleaning supplies and diet pill pamphlets and chocolate, you can really go F yourself.
Well, right? I think the larger problem is, why is one of your sponsors a diet pill manufacturer in a theater?
Actually,
that's just weird.
Sponsoring Wonder Woman, and I think.
Yeah?
What is it?
Think Thin. They're like diet products.
Think Thin is the protein bar, right?
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
They make protein bars.
It's just a protein bar, and it's not specifically.
I'm fine with protein bars. But
it's not specifically targeted towards women, so yeah, I think they're okay. Diet pill pamphlets, not okay. Telling women, and then having these pictures of women on the front like this, especially like the magazine and all of that, so totally goes against what Wonder Woman stands for. I mean, John and I were talking about on Think Tank about how director Patty Jenkins actually purposefully showed the women's wrinkles and showed Gal Gadot's thigh jiggling so that we could move away from the male gaze and male expectations of women, and then they give this gift basket that completely misses the point.
I've gotten a few gift bags at movie premieres and just movies. They didn't include a bunch of cleaning supplies and chocolate.
Yeah.
Usually it's promotional stuff like a shirt, a sticker, maybe a coupon for some popcorn. This is a ridiculous bag, and to say like, oh, we didn't mean it that way, it's not easy to buy.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna give a gift bag at a movie screening, give a gift bag of popcorn.
Sure.
Everybody wants that.
Yeah, I don't even care that it was I really don't even care that it was Wonder Woman.
I care that it was Wonder Woman because the point of this movie, like you mentioned, is not to focus on traditional gender norms. I mean, Wonder Woman is special because she doesn't care about those things. She's able to be wonderful and positive and strong and empowered, and it just kind of flies in the face of that.
Right, but my point is that of course 100% agree with you. But my point is that like even if it was Batman or Sausage Party or whatever movie it was,
that's a real movie, John.
And they had gift baskets that were meant for women, and they had cleaning supplies, chocolates, and diet pill pamphlets, I'd still be pissed. I'd still think that was stereotypical and sexist.
I think the chocolates are fine because it's food and you're going to a movie.
No, because then there's PMS implications.
I like chocolate.
That's a component, but chocolate is also.
Ladies. It's
I
really
like
stupid.
chocolate.
It's demeaning.
I would have taken a bag of chocolate. I don't want diet pills.
It's a different
but I'm
contest.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I buy, like if a movie theater has a sponsor that is a chocolate manufacturer, that naturally makes more sense than we've got a diet pill.
If it was just chocolate and popcorn and nachos, don't forget the nachos,
It had
I would be
nachos.
like, totally cool.
There
I
you
wish
go.
I had that at my Wonder Woman movies.
I'll take a squeegee too.
screening. But
need
when you
one.
add in everything else, then things are put into context and you can look into the
Agreed.
implications there a little bit more.
Okay.
All right, moving on. As much as I hate internet trolls, they made a move this week that is actually pretty funny. So basically, they tricked conservatives in Houston into showing up to protect a statue of the slave-owning Sam Houston, which the city got their name from. Now, this was fueled by a May 19th Facebook post from a group called Texas Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist, and is a fake Facebook group, okay? Now, rumors swirled that the leftist groups wanted the Sam Houston monument to be next in a line of removal of Confederate figures around the country, sparking an intensive "Don't Mess with Texas" campaign. Now, on the Antifa fake Facebook post, they said, "We're about to have a huge event in Houston, June 10th, with the combined forces of several large groups, perhaps our biggest ever. The fascists better not show up, or they will be limping home bruised, broken, hurt, and crying with their tails tucked between their legs." Anytime somebody says like, "This person better not show up," that's like when your dad was like, "No, you better not go to bed now." You know what I mean?
That Facebook page.
You better not eat your veggies before dessert. Like that's basically what they're doing. So let's take a quick look at the Facebook post here. Now, a This Is Texas Facebook account responded, and they said their goal is to remove the Sam Houston statue. Many of these communist punks are emboldened after they lay claim to a win in New Orleans by bringing down the Confederate monuments. We invite all 3%ers, Oath Keepers, militias, Tea Partiers, liberty-loving Texans, liberty-loving Americans, open carry organizations, and anyone who loves Texas and wants to protect our sovereign soil and history to join us. And join us they did. Now they swarmed Herman Park early in the morning, decked in camo, leather vests, InfoWars jackets, and Texas pride shirts toting American, Texan, and Don't Tread on Me flags, Stand with Sam signs, and semi-automatic rifles and snipers. There was a 40-person deep security team that patrolled the area, while the hydration team passed out water, waiting in the Texas summer heat for the enemy leftist groups to arrive. But obviously they never did because it was completely fake and they were trolling them. Also, they kind of missed the point saying that they were like standing up for their Confederate leaders, because Sam Houston was never a Confederate leader. In fact, he said he didn't want to join the Confederacy. So kind of missed the point there.
Are you saying that people who go around wearing InfoWars jackets don't necessarily know their history and are easily taken in by hoaxes?
I'm saying they might not know their info.
They
might actually have
too busy with the war
on info.
Yes.
So,
yeah, that's sort of embarrassing.
Yeah, it's
but they don't care. They're happy.
No, because they wrote like, "Oh, we still achieved our goal of being trolled."
To walk around with camo and a gun, I guess. Like that's their goal.
It's weird how divisive and defensive the writing got so quickly. Like, these communists think they can come over here after their win in New Orleans, and it's like, I don't think the mayor of New Orleans was being communist when he made this very well thought out declaration of why this Confederate monument should be removed. And then we get to, all of you should come stand up for America and open carry, and it's just like, it's so quickly partisan and divisive, and it doesn't need to be that way. This is an imaginary enemy. None of this is real, and it was so fast to join up arms and start a war against something that didn't exist.
Or at least want to.
Or maybe your own fears.
Well, the best part there is they did get so, like you're talking about, they got riled up so quickly, but then they were chanting about libtards and snowflakes.
Yeah.
Who's getting riled up very quickly here?
Who's a snowflake?
What?
Yeah, where's the snowflakes?
Exactly. So They're saying that these crowds gathered there. They're saying that some of the numbers might be over-exaggerated because there was a nearby anti-Sharia protest, and they don't know if potentially some people got confused and didn't know where to go, so they went with this crowd. Either way, they were on the wrong side.
There's probably some overlap in the crowds at those two events. And yes, I do buy that the sorts of guys who would show up at this event would exaggerate numbers from time to time. So I told you in the production meeting, I generally think that trolling is a gigantic waste of time, and I think that humanity could accomplish a lot if we spent less time trying to emotionally instigate each other and created something. But if you're going to troll, this is okay. It's fine, saying that they're gonna try to take down this monument, I guess. But the thing is it's so believable. Like, yeah, a lot of monuments have been taken down, so I get why you would show up there. So the people who show up there don't really look that ridiculous. If you really want to troll these sorts of people, you make a fake statue for a person that never existed, put that somewhere, and then say we're gonna take that down and watch them flock to defend it. That's how you make them look like idiots.
That's a good idea. Also, you make a good point having these people all show up and exclaim their frustration with this.
Their love for Webster McDaniel.
Yeah, whatever it may be. But I think it's something else that was important that came out of this is they spent thousands of dollars on supplies to arm themselves for this. So they're removing some of the funding for these fascist.
I got news for you though. The thousands of dollars they spent to arm themselves would have otherwise been spent on funding or arming themselves, I think. So they probably don't mind buying that extra ammo.
But I mean, can you imagine being like, oh, I'm anti-fascist? Like that's so
That's a weird thing to say. It's like saying I'm a fascist.
Yeah, well, that's
fascist at
least.
least.
Basically, but they also one of the other I guess comments on this Facebook. This is Texas. They call themselves. I've never heard this, and maybe I'm living under a rock. Instead of alt-right, they call themselves alt-knights.
It's all the knights
of the alt-right.
What? So it's saying instead of sort of taking on some of the negative connotations with alt-right, they're saying, yeah, we believe in these things, but we're knights. We're the alt-knights.
Well, guess what? I'm a social justice mage, not a warrior.
I really like that. I want to see that in the future. But yeah, what I love about that is, for me, when I hear knights, if a nerd is used, like if Kim says knight, I think of an elven knight from World of Warcraft, which is cool. When right wingers use knights, I think of the KKK and I think of all those other groups. Like that doesn't really, if you're trying to avoid negative connotations, calling yourself a white knight isn't the way that you do it.
But maybe that they see that as a positive.
I'm sure maybe they do.
Maybe they do actually. They're like, oh, we can kind of move away from this alt-right thing, but also subliminally associate ourselves with the KKK, our true heroes.
Maybe.
I think you're on to something.
That's possible.
Either way, I mean, I really do. I mean, I think we can all attest that we hate trolls in general, but I do like this sort of scenario, and I like kind of putting in these sorts of other ideas where we can sort of show these people's true color. Like they didn't even look up who this person was. They didn't really know who they were defending or why they were defending it. They just thought it was sort of associated to these other Confederate. I mean, they're standing up for slave owners and people who want to continue slavery.
Yeah.
At what point in history are we gonna be like, are these people gonna realize that they're on the wrong side of it?
What happens is you rationalize it to the point where it's no longer the same thing. So you'll say oh, it's not slavery. It's this other thing that was not as big of an issue at the time.
Yeah, and realistically, I mean, it's been a couple hundred years at this point, probably not at all. I mean, these things can go away and then come back, like the whole Confederate flag thing. They think the Confederate flag has always been important to us, but it wasn't always important to them. It was important to them during and immediately after the Confederacy. Then it went away for decade after decade after decade. And then the Civil Rights Movement started. They started to feel like something was being taken away from them, and they looked for symbols, and that was one of the ones they found. And so it'll always be there. For scared people who are worried about progress, there will always be something in the past they can look to and say, that was when things were going well, that's what we need to get back to. And so the answer to the question is never. We're never gonna get away from our baser instincts.
Yeah, but I mean, I like to sort of believe that people are good.
We all have.
Yeah, I think overall, but it's like Wonder Woman said. We all have, we have evil inside of us. And
It's about what you believe in.
Right,
and I believe in love, Anna and audience.
What a quote. What a quote, Kim. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is I just hope that, I guess eventually people will like slowly accept. I mean, we have made progress, but I hope that more people will accept, and we don't need to have these signs of hatred to sort of hold on to our white supremacy. I mean, I think that's pretty sad and pathetic, but.
Yeah, no, so can I say before we close out, so Cenk is still gonna be gone for, I don't know, 6 months or so.
What?
But, no, I'm kidding, but it seems like a long time. But it doesn't matter, we got a lot of awesome people gonna be on the show. In fact, tomorrow, Anna Kasparian is back from her short little break. And so she's gonna be joining me in the first hour. I don't know who is actually leading the second hour.
Not me.
But we will have more Anna, and we do have, I believe, a special guest who hasn't been on the show in something like a year or possibly longer. I believe will be in tomorrow's first hour, so you can look forward to that.
Very exciting.
Thank you for leading an awesome second hour.
Yay, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Stick around for a members only post game, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.